Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million and beyond as you up arrow your business and your personal life. Some founders chase funding, others chase freedom. Lindsey Johnson, the CEO of Weezie, chases excellence. After years in finance, BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, she traded spreadsheets for spa towels and turned a simple idea into a nationally recognized luxury brand. In just 7 years, Weezie has redefined what everyday essentials can feel like, selling over 1 million products, building a 50-person team, and proving that slower, profitable growth can outlast the hype. This is a story about thoughtful leadership, brand as philosophy, and how to scale something beautiful without losing your soul. Lindsey, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to the guy who introduced us as well, Matt Barr. Matt, I don't know if you even know this, Matt was literally my very first guest on the podcast, episode number 1. So Matt, thank you for the intro to Lindsey.
And Matt was my very first developer at Weezie. So
wow.
We have that in common.
Matt, you are just the playmaker here. I appreciate it. One more interruption, and then we'll jump right into the good stuff here. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. Okay, on to the good stuff. As I mentioned, you started in finance. BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, hedge funds. Then you got an MBA from Columbia. Most people in that lane tend to double down. You zigged instead. What pulled you towards starting something in consumer?
Yeah, I was working in New York City at the time in finance, and that was always sort of the path I had in my head. It was a very, as you mentioned, sort of a linear path and could have been. And when I was living in New York City at the time, there was very much what I would call like sort of this direct-to-consumer boom. So all these different brands were popping up around me. So this was like the Away, Glossier, Casper, Warby Parker, etc. And I just became really fascinated by that concept and those brands, and started talking to a lot of folks in New York City who had started those brands, and kind of met people who had friends of friends who worked at those brands, and got really interested in sort of the operational side of how those retail businesses actually worked. And I went to Columbia Business School with the idea that I would sort of marry this interest in retail with my background in finance. And so I was thinking I would go into venture capital. So my hope at the time was I can go invest in these early stage businesses. And that morphed into me actually going to start a brand of my own.
You told me that you are a self-proclaimed pessimist of sorts. Not necessarily pessimist, but you turned down a lot of ideas. No, that won't work. No, I don't like that idea. What made you ultimately say, yes, towels, that's the one?
Yeah, so I co-founded the business with one of my very best friends, and she is more of the kind of traditional entrepreneur, I would say. So she's a creative, and she's constantly has new ideas. Even today, she sent me an idea of a new company she wants to start while we're still running Weezie Towels. And I am definitely a pessimist by nature. So I'm very much a no person, not a yes person. So every idea I'd be like, no, like the market's too small, or the world doesn't need another X, or we have no expertise in that. I don't want to do that. And one day she sent a text to a bunch of girlfriends, of which I was one, saying I was shopping for towels. I had this horrible experience. I was at a department store, myriad of brands, bunch of different price points, bunch of different options, and just had a really kind of confusing purchase experience. And then once she finally settled on a brand that was super expensive, was really disappointed in the quality. And so her text to friends was, what towel brand do y'all use? And would you recommend it? And this text sort of popped off with everybody saying no, or I have no idea who makes my towels, and oh, I do know who makes them, but I'm too scared to use them because they're so nice. I keep them in my guest bedroom. Sure. All these different stories. And I was in the camp of, I have no idea who makes my towels. I think my towels were a hand-me-down from like my older brother from college. And so at first I was definitely a hard no on this idea, but what got me interested is I just started casually asking people like, hey, who makes your towels? How much did you spend on them? Do you like them? Do you recommend them? And she was absolutely right in that there was a hole and there was an opportunity because there was no brand loyalty in this space. And most people didn't know who made their towels, how much they cost, and nobody, more importantly, was recommending them. So I think once I realized there was a hole and there was an opportunity and I kind of saw eye to eye there, we set out to decide, like, are we the two people that can actually provide the solution, and what is that solution? So it took us a very long time to get me to the yes. Liz often jokes that she's like, every day I'd wake up and like wait for the text from you being like, I'm out, I don't want to do this. So it was definitely a long journey to get to the yes, but it started with the simple belief that there was a hole in the market.
Finding the hole in the market certainly is the hard part. I actually think the harder part is the part that you called out there. It's like, are we the right people to take this to market? There's so many ways that you can just, I don't know, talk yourself out of it. I'm probably not. There's somebody else out there that is passionate about textiles. They're passionate about, they're passionate about whatever this might be. How did you get over that hump to say, yeah, we are the right people?
I think that the passion is there from Liz because she actually had the experience. So she was there, number one, like, I am passionate about this. I see the problem. It took me going like online to say, okay, well, I'm going to go try to buy towels. And so I went online to try to buy towels. I went in person to try to buy towels. I started mimicking her experience and realized that she was absolutely correct, that the problem was there. The thing that got me excited about the solution, I would say, was, first of all, I was at business school. She was not. And so I signed up for a class called Launch Your Startup. We split all of the homework. So I basically made her take this class with me to test our working relationship. Like, yeah, hey, we're best friends, but do we work well together, and do we actually provide complementary skill sets? And so what do you bring to the table? What do I bring to the table? Is this going to work from a skill set match as well as, personality match, all the things? It's really like it's like a marriage when you have a co-founder. So we went through that process together and had a great experience and found that we were quite complementary, and then started working on the solution. Like, what is the solution here? And the solution that we found was through tons of customer surveys. So we had to like get that problem honed, right? It wasn't just that the purchase experience was terrible. It wasn't that the towel quality wasn't great. It wasn't just that the price point was off or the brand was off. It was all of those things combined into one. So we set out to make the number one luxury quality towel on the market, like hands down, objectively the best towel that is made and sold in the US. And delivering it through a seamless customer experience and a brand that people could like really fall in love with and relate to. And the two, did I at the time have any knowledge about textile manufacturing? No. Did I learn a ton through sampling and vendor relationships? Yes. And so once we found our factory that defined luxury quality the same way that our potential consumers did, which was number one, softness. You have to have the softest towel. It has to feel good to the hand. 2, absorbency, so it has to actually work and absorb water. And 3, durability. That is quality. And it took us, we had to kiss a lot of frogs to find the right factory. And so I was actually, went overseas. It was like business school spring break or something. And I took 2 huge towels with me to go meet with vendors overseas and said 2 huge suitcases of towels. And I would say, this is what we want, not this. And I like this, but not that. And every factory was like, oh, we have that. Here it is. It's off the shelf. This is what we sell to insert other retailer. And I was like, no, I've used that towel. And it's not absorbent enough, or it's not soft enough, etc. And it took us finding the right factory who said, I know exactly what you're talking about. We are working on this exact problem right now. And we've identified a technology that will really unlock this kind of maximum softness and absorbency at the same time, whereas most towels sort of favor one or the other. So it took meeting the right partner who was sort of on the same page with the problem we were solving and willing to sort of invest in that solution. And it was not an easy product development process. So it wasn't like we found them and it was like, okay, great, now we have the towel. I mean, it took iterations and iterations to get it right. And once we got that final product, it was like, all right, it's go time. We did it.
I appreciate that you called out that you're like, no, I've used that towel before. And so it's like, I'm thinking product research, and it's like, you're just going over to your friend's house and your neighbor's house. And they're like, they just walk in and they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't know you're in here. Like, I'm just testing out your towels here real quick. Just making sure. I don't like that one.
You would be creeped out at the amount of photos I have on my iPhone from that stage of my life where I would go into people's bathrooms and just take pictures.
So you were doing that. That's so good.
Oh, 100%. I still do it to this day. Like, my friends know when I'm coming. They're like, oh, crap, she's going to judge my towels.
That's so good. But it matters. And so, having good towels makes sense. I like the idea of like this attention to detail and having it absolutely be perfect. We had on the show Clayton Christopher. He was the founder of Waterloo Sparkling Water and Deep Eddy Vodka and Sweet Leaf Tea. Like, you know, 3 businesses. He's took the 100 million, and he said, like, when in beverage, taste is the most important thing. Like, none of the other stuff matters. All the other differentiators, if it does not taste good, people aren't going to buy it. And to your point too, it's like the feel of this towel, the quality actually has to be there. If it's not there, none of the other stuff matters. The monogram doesn't matter. None of these other things, the ridging, whatever, I don't even know the terms, but it's like none of that stuff matters if the quality isn't there.
Totally. And I think for us, that was like the number one thing we had to get right before anything else came. And the towel that we wanted did not exist. And I felt very strongly. I think a lot of the ideas that had come early on from Liz, frankly, were like, take a commodity, but like make it a pretty brand. And, you know, we felt really strongly that it's not just take a commodity, make it a pretty brand. It's take a commodity or a product and vastly improve the quality of the product and then deliver that through the customer experience and brand. That was something that was, you know, head and shoulders above what was out there.
One of the things that I found fascinating is knowing that you came from a finance background. You didn't start building this with funding. You decided to take more of like the intentional, slower growth, profitable first type approach. Pros and cons. Why did you go that direction instead?
I think that precisely because I came from finance, which is why I felt strongly that we not pursue venture capital, just because I've seen it go south before. Sure. And what I mean by that is I had a fundamental belief at this time, which was back in 2017 when we conceived of the idea and we launched the business in 2018, that consumer product businesses should not be expected to have a 10x revenue exit the way that like SaaS businesses do. And at the time, venture capitalists, you know, there was like the $1 billion Dollar Shave Club exit that sort of set the tone, and everybody started raising this like massive amounts of venture capital. And I just was like, this doesn't make sense. This is a working capital heavy business. It's not SaaS. And so I definitely put together a pitch deck, and we definitely had conversations just because I was kind of curious how the market would react to this idea. And it was a really interesting exercise. We got a lot of interest. But when the rubber met the road, it was like, do we want to sign ourselves up for somebody else's vision of what this business needs to look like to be successful? Or do we want to kind of be on our own path and kind of be in charge of our own destiny, so to speak? So the pros of that is being in control and having, you know, being able to kind of set the dials how you want in terms of pace of growth and scale and profitability and all those things. But on the flip side, it is hard to start a business with limited capital. I think I looked around at the time and my peers and so many of our friends, frankly, were starting businesses and hitting, you know, the Forbes 30 under 30 list because they had raised some huge amount of money. Like, it was like this badge of honor. And that was definitely hard to watch happen because I'm like, oh, I wish we could do this splashy marketing campaign. I wish we could take over the subway. I wish we could do all these things people were doing at the time that we just didn't have the dollars for. So it definitely takes patience. It still does. I still have feelings out there like we're falling behind because we aren't moving as fast. But I think I'm very proud of our ability to sort of do this on our own 2 feet. So we did eventually raise like a small friends and family round after almost a year of running the business because we really needed to support inventory, and no one will give you debt when you have only 1 year of sales behind you. So there really was no other way to kind of grow our grow our product line the way we wanted to without taking on a small amount of equity investment. But since then, that was, I guess, at the end of 2019, we've not raised any money since.
You were a visionary of sorts then in that, because I think to your point, we did see a lot of brands in the DTC space go the funding route, go the VC route, the PE route. They end up IPOing. Allbirds is another one where it's like, we've seen so many of these where they're worth, you know, a tenth of what they were when they IPO'd. And so to your point, I think that there was overvaluation, over excitement about some of these brands, and we've seen it bite them. Whereas I'm always been a fan of intentional growth. And one of the things that my team talk about is non-cancerous growth, right? It's like you can have a cancer cell that grows rapidly. It's very, very effective at growth. It's just not very effective at doing the other thing that it's supposed to be, which is being a very functional cell. And so I appreciate that you saw that ahead of time and went the more profitable path.
I think it definitely forced a discipline that the whole company has now adopted in terms of like being very we always say crawl, walk, run approach. I mean, I felt like there was a lot of people out there who were sprinting while we were crawling, and that was hard. But I think what it allowed us to do is to make mistakes on a smaller scale and like really learn who our customer is and what products resonate and all the things before we kind of double down and make these bigger bets. And I think 7 years in, now we feel like we're in a position where we can do some of those things that have kind of always been on the wish list, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. One thing I always appreciate talking to founders about is that first year, because there's usually some kind of chaos. There's things, as much as you can put it down on a spreadsheet and you've got your business plan and you get your Google Docs, it's all ready. There are things that you're just like, I wasn't ready for that. Were there any moments like that your first year that you're like, this, okay, you know, here we go?
I mean, I honestly just had like 10 things pop through my mind when you asked that question. I think
Sure.
our first like year and a half in business was especially crazy because it was leading into COVID. So we launched the business at the end of 2018, and obviously COVID happened at the beginning of 2020. So in that time period, I think, you know, one, when you start a business with your own money, we're like stroking checks I never thought we would stroke before. I remember when we first placed our order, our first PO with our factory, who's still our factory today. They thought it was fake. Because they're like, we just met this girl at this trade show. Like, what? They flew to New York City under the guise of meeting with other clients, and they showed up at my apartment, which was my business address.
I love it.
To snuff out if this was a real company or not. And so I was like, what are you doing here? Once he told me finally, he was like, yeah, actually the company owner just asked me to come like get eyes on like what this operation was, like how, like, why did you buy so many towels? And I just remember that being like, whoa, okay, like we're in the big leagues, like we're doing this moment. We also had to hire an embroiderer. I mean, so it was just Liz and I when we started the brand, and, you know, we're picking and packing and shipping all the orders. That was the plan. And, you know, probably like 4 or 5 months before we launched, Liz was like, you know, one of the core problems I had was that I wanted to get my towels embroidered and I wanted to get them done. I wanted to see a preview of what it was going to look like and pick from like really beautiful options. And, you know, we did not plan to launch with embroidery. We sort of thought like, let's launch like MVP, minimum viable product. Let's get the towel right. We'll add embroidery later. And I'm so glad we sort of hit the pause button and said, you know, we really need to deliver customization. That was a part of the problem. Let's spend the time to get it right. Well, you know, we need to find someone who understands customization and can actually help us with the embroidery bit. So it took us probably 6 months to stand that up. It was just the two of us and an embroiderer that we like legitimately stalked at the Savannah, Georgia mall.
Really?
And he was embroidering uniforms at a company called Uniform Source. And we were just trying to find anybody in Savannah, Georgia, which is where my co-founder was based at the time, that knew how to embroider, because that's where we were going to store all of our towels and we needed someone to embroider them. So we, after a long time of, you know, he had like 3 children. He's like, who are these girls that are trying to take me away from my livelihood into this,
Sure.
you know, empty self-storage unit full of towels with 0 customers. And after a lot of convincing, we got him over, and we, you know, he trained us up on embroidery. And when we launched the website, it was like sort of off to the races. But I just know there's so many moments like that in those early days when you kind of like look around. We were in like a self-storage unit. I mean, it was where SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design students stored their stuff over the summer. There was like a college rock band that would practice there after hours. So like while we were packing boxes through the night, there was like this god awful music. I mean, just so many memories like that.
I love it. I love that you were literally stalking your embroiderer at the mall.
He was like definitely creeped out.
Well, it sounds like it turned out all right for him too.
Mm-hmm.
You also told me that 2020 was an interesting year for you guys too. You're fresh in the business and about to make some big decisions. What happened in 2020?
Yeah, 2020 was interesting. I got pregnant with my first child in 2019. So I was due March of 2020. I was living in New York City. You know, March of 2020 is when COVID hit, and it was the first time in the brand's history where we were trying to like figure out, where's this brand going to be based? My co-founder's in Savannah, I'm in New York. Both didn't like really make sense for the brand. We had identified Atlanta as an opportunity for the brand to move to, but we were kind of putting wheels in motion for that. So we were looking to hire folks in Atlanta, and we really needed a space. So we were out of this like self-storage facility in Savannah. So we were finally going to sign this like multi-year lease on like a 50,000 square foot warehouse, which was, huge. And we had never signed a long-term lease on anything at that point. And I just remember I went into labor and I was reviewing this lease in the hospital on my computer, and I was like supposed to sign it before the baby was there. And I was reviewing it, and this, doctor came in and she's like, you got to put your computer down. Like, it's go time. You're having this baby. I'm like, okay, fine. So I put my computer down. Well, in the 24 hours after I had my first child, the world turned upside down.
Yeah.
And had we had signed that lease, I mean, I don't know what would have happened, because financially we could not have afforded it without being able to operate in it. We couldn't, there's no physical, we could have moved to this space. And the world totally shut down, as you know. And I had a newborn, and at the time, the very beginning of COVID, it was quite scary for our brand because our sales went to zero. I mean, Shopify was like the scariest place in the world for me to open. I'm like, how are we going to make payroll? Like, we had just bought all this inventory. We had bought all this like beach inventory and all the like robe inventory, all this stuff. And I was like, how are we going to pay for this? Nobody's going to buy from us. That first probably 4 weeks was like okay, was this just like a fun year and a half and we're done? And then, probably the end of April is when we started to things totally shift in the other direction. I mean, we caught every tailwind we could. One, we were in the home business, right? So we're in the home industry, which everybody's stuck at home. Yeah. Two, we had absolutely no retail relationships and wholesale relationships. Everything was online. We had no long-term leases, no office leases, no warehouse leases. Wow. I mean, it was truly like luck that we were in the position we were in. And I think that year was just like a step function in growth for us. And we went from being like scared we were going to have to furlough everybody and kind of pause the company to not being able to keep up with demand, and kind of chasing inventory, trying to hire people as fast as we could and kind of keep up with demand. And it's, that caused its own set of issues, which was like supply chain woes happened, and then inflation happened. And I think since that moment in time, I have learned so much about, kind of rolling with the punches and being prepared for the things you can't prepare for. And I think I didn't really realize how tied, our success or not would be to external factors that are beyond your control. Like this year's, the whole theme has been tariffs. And I just think that, the world has sort of, every year since COVID,
yes,
the retail world has been rocked by something. And I think it has been like a masterclass in retail for someone like me who came from a totally different world, and having to kind of keep up and stay nimble and all those things.
Yeah, I appreciate that you called it luck a little bit. I've got young daughters, 15, 12, and 10 now, and obviously they're thinking about what they want to do and where they want to be. And it's like, well, how do I become successful with this or this? And it's like, the best thing that I can say that I've heard from others is it's like, do the right things consistently, right? Like consistently over and over and over and over and over again. And then when the right opportunity hits, you'll be in the right place at the right time. But if you're not doing those things, you won't be there. But so you got to be doing those right things.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And I like hard work breeds good luck, And I think you got to give yourself like the chance to be at bat. And if you don't do that, then it's like the luck's not going to be there, right?
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about like your overall philosophy of growth. You mentioned the crawl, walk, run, but you also mentioned EOS, and that's something that I'm also passionate about. We've implemented that as well. For people who haven't implemented it, and maybe are thinking about it, or maybe even haven't heard of it, what was going on in the business that made you say, we need to implement something, and EOS is the thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I had read the book Traction by Gino Wickman in Weezie's earliest days. I think we had like 5 employees or something, and it felt sort of out of touch. Like I read it and I was like, this makes sense, but like our business is not at a point where we are in a position to roll this out. It was like, gather your leadership team. I'm like, we don't have a leadership team. We don't have any of these things.
Your co-founder and the embroiderer. Yeah,
exactly. I was like, this is a great idea in theory. And then fast forward kind of, back to what I was saying, COVID was incredible. And then we had supply chain issues. And then we had these like 2 years of like incredible growth. And frankly, we got over our skis. We sort of over-invested in things. And I think I made the like naive assumption that like growth was just going to happen every year. And it was just going to be kind of like, oh, we grew this year, this much last year, and let's grow a little bit more next year. And that's just going to happen every year. And so then I'm going to invest in the business accordingly. So I'm hiring a team accordingly. You know, we got an office space, we opened a retail store. I mean, all of the things that we'd sort of held off on doing. And it became it was the first time in company history that we didn't make money. And it was like, okay, whoa, you know, we aren't in a position financially where we can just grow without profits. I think, again, like a lot of other brands can do that, or, you know, sometimes or even that's sort of what they're meant to do. But for us, we needed the profits to sustain. And so that year was like a real, you know, hard look in the mirror. Like, okay, how did we get here? How are we getting ourselves back on track? And the answer was, we are going to grow 0%. So we are going to, instead of trying to chase growth and profitability at the same time, I'm only going to chase profitability because that is all that matters. And we just experienced what it felt like not to be profitable, which is not in my DNA. And so we decided we're going to grow 0% and we're going to chase profitability. So we did exactly what we said we were going to do. But then I looked back on the last 2 years. I'm like, hey, this isn't that fun. You know, 2 years ago, we weren't profitable. This year, we didn't grow. Like, let's get back to where we know we can be, which is growth and profitability. And that was when I had like the light bulb moment of like, okay, remember that book I read, Traction? It's called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. I think that our team is of the size and scale. Well, this would give us some really good guardrails and processes to help take us to the next level and kind of get us back on the right path. And I reread the book and just like, it just totally resonated with me. I think, you know, kind of describes like the 6 most important things you need to scale your business. And it just kind of breaks everything down in like a very digestible way. And so I gathered, this was, I think, at the end of 2023, I gathered our leadership team, which we finally had one at the time, and said like, read this book, like, and we're going to like lock ourselves in this room and we're going to do this. And so it makes you go through the exercise of setting your core values, setting your niche, your purpose, your passion. What is your 10-year goal, your 3-year goal, your 1-year goal? Just kind of like really is a roadmap for where you're trying to go as a business and how you are going to get there. And we have followed it for now. It'll be almost, I guess, 2 years. We launched it in January of 2024. It takes a long time to roll out, especially when you're DIY. So we did not hire an implementer to do it. So we still have a little bit to go, but I'm really proud of our ability to implement EOS because I think I very much credit the system and the tools with, like I said, providing the vision, helping us kind of shape our vision, and then really creating the roadmap of how we're going to get there.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a big fan of it. It's probably come up on 1/3 of the podcasts that I've done with founders here is, you know, EOS Traction specifically, you know, some type of a system, but it makes a difference when all of a sudden there's more people in the business and you have to get everybody on the same page, moving in the same direction. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things for me was I felt like some of those things were just really wishy-washy, feel-good stuff. Your mission and your values, and you're like, I don't know, like our value is just like do great work. That's our value. Like just do it, right? But I realized that it's like once I defined those a little bit better, and we got together as a team and we like asked everybody, it's like, what are the values that we currently espouse as a team, right? And now what are the ones that we want to make sure that we highlight that everybody else that we bring on the company has these things? What is our mission? Where are we going? What is our plan, right? This 10-year, 3-year, 1 year. Now, all of a sudden, I'm not the bottleneck in making decisions anymore. And it just allowed the team to accelerate significantly better. They could make a decision and say, does this fit within our plan? Does this fit within our mission? Does this fit within our values? Great. Make the call. If you make the call and that was it, and it ended up being the wrong call, you're not going to get any, you know, fault from me because it's like, that's the call I would have made that fit within what we were doing.
Totally. It just gives people like a framework to follow and to like, it makes your day-to-day easier, your month-to-month easier. And I think for me, like one of the biggest unlocks I had reading it was just around the people component. Like we talked a little bit about this, but I feel like I was in business school and I was going to all these like entrepreneur talks and everyone's like, what's the hardest thing? And everyone's like, people. And I just remember like so naively sitting in my seat being like, I'm good with people. Like people won't ever be a problem for me. And then you have a company with like, our company is like 70 people now. And I'm like, I get it. You know, like there's having the right people in the right seats and like accountable for their work and, you know, kind of on the right path and prioritizing correctly is everything. And like, we wouldn't be where we are today without this incredible team we've built. And I wouldn't say it's like quote unquote the hardest thing, but I would say it's like the most important thing to get right. And I think EOS does a really good job of kind of simplifying that and like, who are the right people for your organization? What are the right seats? It just forces you to kind of think about things in a way that previously I had not.
The reason why I think founders often say that it's the hardest thing, and this is just me just guessing, is because we typically tend to maybe be the people who aren't as people-centric in that way, right? We're thinking about the numbers. We're very, very good about thinking about numbers. We're very, very good about thinking about where we want the product to go. And so then it's like sometimes our mind is so distracted with those things that we are naturally inclined to be very good at. And maybe, and I'm not speaking for you, I'm speaking for myself. It's like, maybe I'm just a little bit socially awkward. And so it's easy for me to dive into the numbers and to dive into the product than it is for me to dive into like relationships and emotion, things that I maybe struggled with at first.
Yeah, I think I went through a very in-depth 360 leadership review earlier this year. So I had like an external party interview a ton of people on our team and survey a bunch of people. And I know this about myself, but I'm extremely direct. I'm extremely blunt. I'm decisive. Like I can cut people off halfway through the sentence because I already decided what I think we should do.
That works so well in the South, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it could not be more off-putting, I am sure. It allows us to move very quickly, and I'm very efficient with my time because of that decisiveness. But when it comes across as direct or blunt, which is a nice way to put it, I think it's really off-putting, and it's not an effective way to lead, and it's not an effective way to kind of get people on board and motivate and kind of rally the troops, so to speak. And I think that was a very eye-opening process for me, and I think it's sort of changed the way I view the team and the way I kind of view the people at the organization and kind of how we all like work together to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Something else you told me that I appreciate is you guys have really spent a lot of time defining what your 3 uniques are. What are your 3 uniques?
Mm-hmm. So number 1 is quality, luxury quality every step of the way, from the product to the customer experience. Like every touch point with Weezie should exude ultimate luxury. So luxury quality through everything we do in and out. The second is this, I'd say, unbelievable aesthetic and design. So, I mentioned, having curated, beautiful customization options where you can really create a towel that is unique to your own aesthetic. But it's really about style and beauty and just curated options. And then the third thing is our brand. So our brand is really all about being hospitable. You mentioned Southern roots, and really bringing joy and delight into every moment, whether that be a mundane moment like taking a shower, or a big moment in your life like giving your baby their first bath, or moving into your first home with your newly married and you have your new monogram on the towels. Like there are big moments we can show up for and small moments we show up for, but no matter what, it is with like joy and delight and just really kind of breathing a new life into something that is previously thought of as sort of mundane, like a commodity, like a towel.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I will admit that as a performance marketer, in my early days, I was much more about the numbers and what was performing and what was ROAS, et cetera, right? And brand was this thing that was like this wishy-washy, feel-good thing that didn't matter. As I developed in my career, the more I started realizing, wait, brand is the secret sauce. Brand is the thing that most brands maybe are struggling to do. And it's like, it's very easy to initially, when you first get into DTC for some reason, to just go after ROAS and sales and direct transactional type stuff. You pay money to Facebook and it does it. Like this formula that kind of works. But then when you get to a certain point, you start hitting 1 million in sales. It's like, okay, you've got some product market fit. You get to 10 million. If you haven't developed brand, cracking past 10 million on really developing brand, I have found for most companies is very, very difficult. But it's hard for them to grasp if they've got that mindset of, we are looking at direct attribution and exactly what's here. How do you decide what's brand building versus wasted spend?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'm very grateful that my co-founder has always preached from day one the importance of brand. So it's really kind of in our ethos, and it's been a part of who Weezie is and who Weezie has sought to be since day one. It was really hard for me, like the numbers person, to get comfortable with the idea of brand because it feels like a little bit squishy and immeasurable. And I think at the beginning it was, doing things like customer coffee chats, that feel very unscalable, or like pop-ups at like, places that we want to be associated with, but where I'm like manning a pop-up booth, but like it feels so unscalable. But it was like the brand we wanted to be associated with, and holding that coffee chat at a location that was on brand, quote unquote. And so all these like little decisions about, the way we show up in the world, both from like a visual identity standpoint as well as, in real life events and things of that nature, that cohesiveness matters. And I think it was very difficult for me to like get behind the importance of these things at the beginning, because I'm like, we have so few resources and it's just untrackable. It is hard for me to track a billboard, or in some cases direct mail can be hard to track depending on how you're sending it. So things like that felt very immeasurable, but every touch point means something. And so I think, we went to Portugal, which is where one of our primary factories is, and filmed what I would call like a brand video. And like that is a big investment to go fly out there, and everything that goes into building that video. And it's like, the old me was like, what's content? What is the purpose of this content? What is this going to get used for? And I think the purpose of it is to storytell, and it is to kind of show people behind the scenes and kind of bring them into the Weezie world, so to speak, in a way that a quick little Facebook ad or Instagram ad cannot. And so this idea of kind of like long form editorial content, either like the written word or video, are things that are hard to measure. But I think all of those little touch points add up and create the brand that Weezie is, and kind of engenders that loyalty and the credibility that comes with our brand name now.
Yeah. I've had the chance of interviewing some other people that have talked a lot about this as well. Preston Rutherford of Chubbies is one.
Yeah, I know Preston.
Man, like he's got some of the best content on LinkedIn about this that I really appreciate. I'm like, I look at it, I share it with my team. I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm trying to say, right? And so he does a good job of that.
Yeah, totally.
And then there was Will Leach was ex Pepsi, and there was just so many little intricacies of things that he would talk about, what he called his marketing mind states, and like the way that he's going about to understand like the mind state that person is in. And I think until you realize that there's something more subtle going on in like our brains, if you can't admit that, then it's hard for you to see that. But it's like when you do realize that, you realize all those little stories add up to somebody basically feeling like, I align with this brand, and they might not even be able to articulate why, but they're just like, I don't know. I just feel connected to this brand in that way. And so even if your towels are more expensive than those other towels that I can get 50% off coupon at Bed Bath & Beyond, I want to get these towels, right? Or there's something that they're saying about themselves with this. And so there's all these little nuances. And when you start to realize that, then you start to say, how can we not invest in brand?
Right. And I think there's like the emotional connection is so important that you mentioned, kind of the feeling you get when you are buying into a brand and you're joining that community of loyal, customers. It just is it's priceless. And so I think that it gives you the ability to, when like the tariffs happened and like all of these things, we're facing price increases everywhere. Like I do think we have some ability to raise prices because we're delivering something outside of just the product itself. I mean, we're delivering the whole Weezie experience. And I think if without brand, you can't really weather something like that the same way that you can when you have that loyalty.
Completely agree. I want to talk about some of the nuanced tactics then that you're seeing that have worked for you or that are currently working for you right now. In growth, what is the channel that you would say happens to be the best channel for growth for you?
Right now, it's still Meta.
Sure.
I think that is by far and away our biggest channel. I think for us, it's been interesting how much Meta has changed over the course of 7 years. Like in many ways, I wish we had started this company much earlier when it was like the heyday on
It was so easy
customer
then.
acquisition.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like that's the thing is like I look at how naive I was at the beginning of this brand. I was like, I don't want to spend any money on Facebook. Like we like held off. It's like, well, we held off just long enough for Facebook to become insanely expensive. So, the hindsight is always 2020 there. But I think what we found in Meta, it's has been interesting the past year or so, has really just become the amount of volume that the platform requires in terms of creative, not necessarily dollars, but creative variety and creative diversity has become very important. So like I think back to years ago, it would be like, oh, like we had these ads, we called them our anatomy ads, and it would be like a picture of the product, and then we'd call it all the different features. Like, hey, every towel we make has a hanging hook, it has rounded corners for a more sophisticated luxury look, it has the fluffy GSM, all the different things in this anatomy ad. We used to just rinse and repeat that ad. I mean, I think we made that about like every product we had. It's like the same thing for a toiletry bag or a beach towel or a robe. Well then like one day the music sort of stops there and it's like, okay, well what now? Okay, now it's video. And so then you kind of go invest in video and it's produced video. Oh, okay, well now it's actually UGC-esque video. And what we found is that it's not, in today's world, it's really not one thing, right? It's kind of all the things. And you're actually getting docked by, we used to just like have an ad take off and we would just rinse and repeat. And now that is no longer something that is going to work for you. Like you really have to invest in that diversity of creative.
There's a lot of people that have been talking on the D2C X community about Andromeda as if it's this new thing. I mean, Meta announced it more than a year ago. But I think what's been interesting is Meta has started to come out and be a lot more, informational about like what they're actually looking for, what creative diversity means to them. And they have a score now that literally will show you that even if your ad is similar to another one of your ads, not exactly the same, I forget the exact amount, like 70% of the same pixels, something to that effect, right? Like similar enough, they consider that to be the same ad. Even if you have different copy associated with it, different headline, different whatever, as far as Meta is concerned, it's the same ad. And that's how it's bucketing things. And so when people say creative diversity, it doesn't mean, 15 versions where it's like, hey, I just made the same ad, but now it's red. And it's like, well, okay, fine. You actually have to be like uniquely different creative.
Totally. And I think that has required an immense amount of investment in like our team, frankly, to be able to crank content at the speed and velocity of which we need to kind of keep up.
It's so hard. So how are you doing it? Are you using this in-house? Are you doing this with a bunch of agencies? What does that look like?
We do everything in-house.
Really?
I think like the only exception there is a media buyer, but
sure,
all of the creative is in-house. And so that I think is also a product of Liz being our creative director. So she has that expertise and honestly, for the first 5 years, I think she was the only person making ads at the company.
Wow.
Now we have like a small army. I feel like every day I walk out of my office and someone is like asking me to film a video or something, and I'm like,
say something smart.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it requires a lot of manpower. And I think, but the good news is that I think a lot of, at least of our employees are like willing to do it, even if their social media is not in their job description. I think this, the generation that is like just now kind of coming out of school and coming into the workforce, social's in their DNA. I mean, they grew up with it. And so it's very easy and kind of innate for them to jump in on the platform. So we've definitely seen a lot of success with what we're calling like EGC, employee generated content as well.
That's a big, I've talked to somebody else about that. I don't remember who it was. I wish it was. If it was you, I apologize. Like I would give you the credit, but I don't remember. But employee generated content is a very interesting thing because, to your point, you get so many different unique perspectives from each employee, whether or not they're the social media person or not. They're in customer service, they're in product, they're in finance, whatever. But it's like they've got their own things, especially in a product like yours, where it's like they all use towels, right? So they all have a perspective to be able to share about this.
Yeah. And they all gravitate towards different products that we make, and for different reasons. And I think to your point about like depending on their function, it's such a different story. Like we have, so our flagship retail store is in Atlanta, and we have all of our corporate employees work through our flagship retail store, and listening to each employee sell is so fascinating to me. Like our product development girl is like, you wouldn't believe how many factories we had to get this one little detail right. And like, this is the best quality because of X, Y, and Z. Like, a story or an anecdote that a marketer might not know, right? And so I think it's just this confluence of what each employee knows about the product and how it got there and what kind of sticks out to them as like the most important selling feature. But it's funny what people gravitate towards. Like if you asked the whole company, what's your favorite Weezie product? I would be shocked if not every single person had a different answer because everyone gravitates towards something different.
How do you encourage employees to make employee-generated content, EGC? Are you incentivizing them in some way? Are you mandating, I need everybody to make one ad a month? Or how do you go about that?
We're actually working on formalizing it right now, so it's very a live topic. But I think the model that we're going to try is going to be some sort of Weezie credit to, instead of kind of necessarily compensation, but a Weezie credit. And then I think a lot of people are incentivized to grow their followings. And so if we actually run like a whitelisted ad or a partnership ad with their Instagram account, that's also appealing to them.
Sure. When you're evaluating the effectiveness of which ad is working, which channel is working, I mean, you said Meta is still the best one. And I would say, just for anybody listening, Meta is the best channel for almost all of our clients, if not all of them. Mm-hmm. And that is true for every other agency owner that I talk to, for everybody else in DTC. It is still the one that performs the best. The ones that I'd say like are, can sometimes do better depending on the brand, TikTok and YouTube. Like those are the other two that I'd say are like the bigger ones, but Meta tends to be the one that performs the best for most people. But when you're deciding why it's performing better, my guess is you're not looking at saying it's got the best ROAS. Your branded search on Google has a better ROAS and platform. So how are you deciding which channel is your best channel? What metrics are you using outside of that?
I mean, I'm looking at ROAS by new customer as well as existing customer. And I think that's like a really good litmus. It's like, and it's just the conversion on the ads and just like that overall kind of AIM or marketing efficiency ratio is something that we look at. And I think for us, like top of funnel, if we're talking top of funnel exclusively, Facebook is the number one driver. Sure, there's other tactics kind of for bottom of funnel. We honestly didn't really spend money on retention at all on Facebook up until like a time of year like right now. We will, of course, because it's Q4, but we typically try to focus it mostly on new customer acquisition. And I think we have a good presence on YouTube as well and Pinterest as well, but I think in terms of like scale, no other channel has been able to scale with us the way that Meta has.
Completely agree. How about customer surveys? Do those play a role in how you evaluate the effectiveness of a channel outside of what the channel itself is saying?
So another Matt Barr shout out. Inquire or Fairing now, I guess it's called. His tool Fairing is the post-purchase survey. So when you check out from Weezie, it says, how did you hear about us or how did you first hear about us? And I always find those results fascinating because you can actually see the source data of where they're coming from, and where they came from is not what they believe as their first touch point, right? And I think it really just goes to show like consumers need multiple touch points before they're actually converting. So you're never going to have this ideal, in my opinion, I think, unless you invest in like a ton of really fancy tools, which we have not yet, but the kind of understanding of the ideal customer journey is so difficult. But I just love the customer's response as this like North Star of what they actually think was their first touch point, whether it's true or not. So we absolutely look at that data, and we do like a biannual, more in-depth customer survey data. And I'm always floored with the responses in those surveys as well. So that definitely informs where we're playing, where we're kind of leaning into, especially when we're learning like what content our customers are consuming and what are they doing? How are they discovering new brands? And most of them are not saying Instagram. I mean, they're saying word of mouth, friends, things that are kind of hard to replicate. But Weezie, I think one of the best things about our brand is that our customers are our best marketers. And so while Instagram is always going to be up there as one of the number one ways that people find out about us, it's always tied in lockstep with word of mouth. And so I think like that, again, I think that's brand. Like that's the power of brand and people wanting to tell their friends and family or gift the product. Gifting is huge. Like if you look at the number of people who have added gift notes or gift wrapping to our orders, I think the number is something like 25%, which is high, right? For a lot of brands. Yeah. The most recent survey data we did, 60% of customers said they were shopping for a gift. So, I mean, just because they're not clicking gift or gift note, they're still gifting it. So it's just, that was a huge aha moment for us. That's like, okay, if gifting is going to be, it's word of mouth, it's brand, all the things, like let's lean into gifting. So I think the customer survey data is absolutely informative.
Yeah. How did you hear about us? Well, there's this random lady who takes pictures of her friends' towels and shames them online, and so
Exactly.
I didn't want to be one of them. No, but I'm a big fan of the customer surveys as well. Love Fairing. We did a study. I want to say it was like 80,000 purchases for this one client, and we found that Facebook's reported return was 80% less than what customers said they came from.
Oh,
And,
wow.
that's an extreme example of it, but it's like there's a lot of times where people are just undervaluing, to your point. It's like, well, these other channels are getting the attribution from it, but when you think about where do people remember their first time interacting with your brand, it might not have been Facebook, but that's what they remember. And so that's a meaningful data point.
And we've been investing in out of home as of late, which is, like billboards and mail, and I think we'll probably move into TV and some things like that. And the billboards, it's crazy. I mean, we only have them in one market, which is in Atlanta, where our flagship is. But the amount of people who say they heard about us from a billboard that is in one local market is mind-boggling to me. And I'm like, there's no way that was your first touch point, but it's the one that they remember.
Mm-hmm. There's, I believe the clip that I just put out on TikTok this morning was about, there's an interview with Matt Bertulli over at Lomi, if you're familiar with Lomi. He talks about how TV is probably the biggest and best channel still for most brands that are trying to target the older demographics, so let's say 55 and up. And I can say that we've got a couple of clients who are in that same boat where it's like, we spend a lot on digital for them. We can't touch their TV budget. Like we are like still like a third maybe of their TV budget. It just dominates with that group.
Yeah, and that is one of our core customers, frankly, is 55 plus. And so that's why we're investing in the long form content, and that's why we are on YouTube now, is because we're sort of building up to that TV moment for sure.
Yeah, it's a different type of content for the official TV spots. You can get away with YouTube Shorts being basically your Facebook ads, your TikTok ads, but when you start getting into actual programmatic TV displays and stuff like that, you need a little something different. You've been on the investor side as well, which I appreciate, right? So what was it? Knoll Ventures, 37 Angels, like you're an angel investor. How does that lens influence your decisions as a founder?
That's a great question. I think that was sort of in my era of like, I want to be a venture capitalist. Sure. And so I think having that background in finance, I, had all the confidence in the world in myself that I was going to be this like lights out VC investor, which couldn't have been further from the truth. So I look back on many of the investments I made at the time, and many of those companies no longer exist. So I think it was a very eye-opening experience for me how easy it is to be on the finance side of the table and give advice and say, here's what you should do, here's how you should think about that, because I had grown up in this world of spreadsheets, right? We'll make the numbers work and then X, Y, and Z and just pull the levers this way and here you go. And until you've actually operated a business, it's impossible to kind of put yourself in an entrepreneur's shoes. And I think I now have kind of been on both sides of that table, right? And so I think when I interact with investors or interact with people who have raised VC or are raising VC, I can totally understand where the investors are coming from. Yeah. And I think it just gives me like a more fulsome picture of like the whole retail ecosystem and how it works. And I think for me, it's the way we've built the business is really to sort of preserve optionality in terms of where you want to take this company. Could we go sell it? Yes. Could we run it for a profit forever? Yes. Could we take a minority investment one day? Yes. And I think the background in finance that I had is kind of given me that lens of here are all the options we could pursue and here's what the implications of each of those could be. So I think it's just been really valuable perspective to come from the finance world and now be in the operating role. And I think I can say with, 1,000% confidence, I'm in the right seat being on the operating side. And I still cringe thinking about all the conversations I had with entrepreneurs. So if anyone's listening, I'm sorry for whatever stupid comment I made to you about what you should or shouldn't do as you were running your business, having done it myself at the time.
There's something to be said about, that life experience. I can remember there was a class in college where part of what we had to do was we had to go to the hospital and talk to new moms and give them parenting advice. It's like, I'm a
Oh my
scruffy
God.
19-year-old guy. Like they don't want anything from me. And I just remember just awkwardly walking into some of these rooms sometimes. It's like,
I feel so bad for that mom that was on
right?
the receiving end of that. I mean, that's how I feel thinking about the audacity I had to say, well, my finance class told me that if
Yeah,
you do X, Y, and Z, this will just work.
yeah.
And everyone's like, ugh. Like, and my husband, like, I love him dearly, but he's in private equity. So, like, I often joke with him. I'm like, he's like, yeah, just move these levers X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, let's talk. I'm going to explain to you what that actually would take to pull that off, and like the human capital, and then the effort on this, and
Sure.
then it's not like a spreadsheet problem.
Oh, wow, that's simple. Let's just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what about you mentioned for Weezie that it's not just about towels, it's about, elevating the everyday. Um, how do you decide what's next when you're thinking about which products to go to and what's on the roadmap?
Yeah, product wise, I mean, we were really deliberate in being super focused at launch. So, like, our website is weezytowels.com. And that was because, one of the things we noticed is that nobody was really owning this space.
Sure.
The vast majority of my competitors, 99% of my competitors are bedding businesses first and a towel business second. And that was sort of like an add on product, it was sort of like an afterthought. And we really felt strongly that the towel should be our hero product. And, we have no intentions in launching bedding because, number one, we don't see a hole in the opportunity, or excuse me, a hole in the market. Like, I don't really believe there's anything missing from bedding. I think most of the
Sure.
bedding out there is pretty good. And two, we have no expertise in it. So, like, when we actually found this factory to make the towel, it was like a huge unlock. It was like, okay, this is actually a higher quality product. So for those reasons, we focused on the towel. Since then, we've expanded our product offering vastly. And the way that we've kind of thought about that is a few fold. One is in the bathroom. So we're going to offer you products that kind of complete that bathroom for you. So that's bath mats, shower curtains, vanity trays, trash cans, toothbrush cups, all of those items. The second is within the world of terry. So terry products like our beach towels and robes, kids cover-ups. We even do like clothing out of terry, like French terry clothing, because it's in that terry family. And the third, I would say, are items that are giftables, things that can be customized. So while an apron is not a bathroom product and it's not a terry product, it is a great gift, and you can actually customize it and add that customization. Excuse me. And I think we will never launch anything unless it kind of hits those three uniques I mentioned, like that luxury quality, beautiful design, and like fits in our brand ethos. And so those are kind of those three things we always think about in terms of should we, launch that product or this product. And I credit Liz with this. I mean, our product parking lot, as we call it, is a mile long. So I have I have no worries about not having enough products to launch, even staying in those few swim lanes.
In the EOS framework, it sounds like she is a true visionary. You are likely the integrator, right? Where it's like visionary, it's like, I've got this idea, and every day is another idea. And
Totally.
It's like, well, we have a thing here that we're going to
Yeah.
focus a little bit.
That book, I love their book, Rocket Fuel, that kind of breaks down. And I think she is our product visionary and she is our brand visionary. There is no doubt about it. And we actually literally have our VP of brand and our SVP of merchandising. I have on their accountability charts, you are Liz's integrator for brand and you are Liz's integrator for product. And so they know that their role is to say yes or no to her ideas and then to bring the yeses to life. And so actually resource them and project plan and do all of the things that require a good idea to be executed. And so we use that language a lot internally.
I love it. In this, I'm the visionary, and I still even tell my team oftentimes, right? It was like my head of social. I'm like, I realize this idea might sound really dumb to you. Humor me and just see what happens if we do this kind of thing, right? So because sometimes I've just got these ideas, and I want to see what happens. So I can appreciate that. I want to get to know who is Lindsey Johnson a little bit more, like the human being behind this company here. I understand that you went through, I think, what was it, 7 schools before college. You ended up choosing boarding school to stay put. How did that shape who you are today as a leader?
Yeah, I moved around a lot as a kid, and I think that breeds resilience. It breeds flexibility, adaptability, independence, and just kind of like mental toughness. I think it's hard as a kid to like kind of be uprooted. Like, it's funny, like people will say like, did you hear so and so is moving? Can you believe it? Their kids are in like such and such grades. And I'm like, I moved like every 3 years. It's like kids are resilient if you give them the opportunity to be, I think. And I think going to boarding school shaped a huge part of who I am. It made me super independent. I think I was always independent by nature, but I think, if you didn't have like clean clothes, it was like, that's on you. If you didn't, things that like your mom might do at home, you're in charge of when you're at school. And so I think it just kind of gave me a leg up, getting to college and having already lived on my own, so to speak, for 4 years. Not a lot shakes me. Like, I think I'm not like super emotional, especially when it comes to work. I'm just like, I feel like things will get like flown our way that are like, these crazy things will happen. And it's like, I think I'm pretty steady Eddie. And I think that I credit that to having moved around so much and experienced so many different things as a child.
That's so important as an entrepreneur. I mean, I'm sure you've seen like the image, right, where it's like, this is the best day ever. Oh no, this is the worst day. This is the best day ever. No, my life is going to die. Like, it's so hard as an entrepreneur. There's so many ups and downs. And that could be all within the same day too, right? So being able to have that emotional stability, I think, is critical for being able to make good, wise, intelligent decisions.
And I think like managing through the unknown or managing through stressful situations. Like, I think that has been really important. I think just to kind of be that steady Eddie, because like I said, I feel like every year since COVID, like some sort of crazy thing has happened in the economy or retail or whatever. And it's like, it doesn't really like phase me anymore, just because it's like, this is just a new normal, like buckle up and problem solve. Like, I just am very much like, okay, this happened. How are we going to solve it? Versus like kind of like wallowing in the situation. Do
you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 older brothers.
Did they learn the same lessons as you, or did they go the opposite direction with that?
I feel like we all were raised the same way, and I feel like very much are resilient, independent, kids for having moved around all over the place.
That's cool. You sometimes hear of one sibling that's like, oh yeah, it was great, it worked out, and I'm emotionally resilient because of it. And they're like, no, I'm a basket case because of it. Like, there was no stability. And so it's good to hear that you guys all found the right direction with that. You talked about how you're known for your directness and bluntness and New York City vibe, and then you're in the South, which is a little bit different. Aside from a management style, say, like, just personally, how have you learned to navigate that change in culture?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So I went to middle school in Atlanta, which is where we are now. Okay. So like I definitely had, and my parents were both from the South. So I think I always grew up around and aware of this like Southern hospitality. Although I spent most of my childhood in California. Okay. I remember I went to a North Carolina based summer camp when I was like 5 years old from California. And I remember being like, why does everyone here say y'all? Like, what is y'all? And I remember like being like very triggered by this word and just so confused by it. And, fast forward to going to middle school in Atlanta, and now I say y'all all the time. So I think it's very much like, it's interesting. Like, I've like been exposed to it my whole life, just having kind of been around the South. But I'd say the New York to Atlanta transition was less about the like hospitable, kind of change, if you will, and more about like New York, everything is just like go, go, go. Yeah. I mean, you are like from sun up to sundown, you are scheduled and booked and busy, for lack of a better word. And I think it's you're surrounded by busy, ambitious, people. And not to say that there's not many of those people in Atlanta, because there are, of course, but it is slower. And I think it's also the phase of life I'm in. Now I have 3 children. And so it is kind of been a big shift, not only in adapting to the geography, but also this phase of life where I'm go, 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 but in a very different way. You can't be all in necessarily, on your career when you have 3 small kids at the same time. So I think it's like less necessarily about kind of the geography and more so about this like phase of life has definitely been a transition for me to kind of figure out what's that right balance between personal and professional. I think the bluntness, for better for worse, permeates both areas of my life, of professional and personal. I think my husband, my family, my friends will all tell you I'm extremely blunt. I'm, if anything, trying to get less blunt at work. But it has definitely been part of who I am since the very beginning.
Well, I think that's important to find people who appreciate you for who you are. You know, there's the show Friends. I actually never got into that show, but I know that there's like a lot of different characters there. It's like there was New Girl, and it's like there's other shows that kind of show this idea of like a lot of different personalities coming together. And my wife and I will joke about that. It's like we both have our own little idiosyncrasies that make us very unique. And it's like sometimes what's interesting is when you first meet, you're like, oh, that's so charming about them. Then you get busy, and you have young kids, and you're like, that's so stressful about them. And then you get over it and you realize you're just like, no, but it really is charming. It really is. Like, I like that about you. And so it's like my wife and I, we laugh about it.
And it makes everybody like refreshing, right? Like
Yes.
everybody's unique, and I think it's refreshing. I think
100% agree.
I've had to learn, I would say some of my employees are direct and blunt and some are not. And like you have to learn, I think, to be effective as a leader, you have to, understand how to adapt your leadership style to different people and different people's personalities and motivations. And I think that has also been a huge like aha moment for me over the past 7 years of leading Weezie, is just like, my style is not going to be effective for a certain type of people.
Sure.
And if you want that person to be effective at their job, like you kind of have to ebb and flow, right? And I'm not saying necessarily like change who you are, but
Right.
I think it's strategic to be able to like tap into different parts of your own personality and lean into different areas and different moments with different people.
I love that. Speaking of different moments with different people, 3 kids and CEO, you're in superhero territory now. How do you separate like mom brain from CEO brain, or how does that work?
I used to answer this question by being like, I'm so good at compartmentalizing. Like when I go to work, I'm at work, and when I'm at home, I'm with kids. Like I think for like a minute I like was delusional and thought that I was really good at that. But that is just not the case anymore. Now, like everything in my life is integrated. So I don't come to work and just focus on work and like put my personal life on the side, and I don't go home and just focus on the kids. I wish I could say that, but really it's all integrated. So what I mean by that is like my work day or my day might not look traditional to some people. So like, for example, today, like I set my alarm at 5 a.m. because I'm an early riser. So that's like
That's
not
early.
terribly early for me, it's not super early, but I'm like, I woke up, I had a bunch of work to catch up on. But it's because I was out of town on vacation last week, and so I hadn't seen my kids. And so the past few nights this week, I've been like, I'm going to come home early. I'm going to get home at 5:30 or 5 o'clock and like spend the whole night with my kids until they go to bed. Whereas, maybe in a normal week, I might miss bedtime one night and pull a late night, or I might come home at 6 o'clock or 6:30. This week, I was like, I want to be home at 5. I want to spend the whole night with them, which means I'm going to have to set my alarm at 5 and crank through work early mornings to catch up on my work. And like, I know that this week I have a childcare situation where I have to go pick up my kids one day from school. And so I know that I need to kind of like figure out what time I'm going to be able to fit that work in that needs to get done. And so it's definitely like a non-traditional work day in many regards. I mean, I'm still in the office every day and all the things, but I think having the flexibility, because I am the leader here, that I can sort of structure my days in different times, allows me the ability to do it. I think if I had this job and didn't have that, I wasn't empowered to be flexible with when I'm working, it wouldn't work. But I think, when I like miss my kids, or when I think that like I need to be there for muffins with mom or the Halloween party or whatever is going on at school, like I can prioritize that. And so I think it's just like the ultimate, I wouldn't say like balance, it's more like integration. Like every day is very integrated between work and personal.
I love that word, integration. I was going to call that out if you did, so I'm glad that you did, because that's how I view it as well. It's not work-life balance, like you said, it's work-life integration, and I think that's more natural. I think that's just kind of how we are. I think that work is a good thing. And I think that it's like, even sometimes, with my daughters, I will say this, like, no, I don't have to work. I get to work. Like, this is a blessing.
Yeah,
This is a very good thing.
I say that all the time. I'm like, you get to go to school and I get to go to work.
Yeah.
And I try to make them realize it's like, how you get to go to school and like see all your friends and do all that fun stuff you get to do. Like, I get to go to work and do what I love and work with awesome people. And this is like an opportunity that I need to be like very grateful for.
You also told me, though, that one of the things about being, let's just say, work-life integration is that you haven't been able to take a traditional maternity leave. How has that helped shape the way that you look at leading for your team?
It's hard. I think it's a struggle to like you want to be able to set the example for your team and like what you expect for your team. And I expect my team to be able to fully unplug and take maternity leaves and paternity leaves, and take time off for their family. And so it's hard when you make a different choice for yourself, because you don't want them to think that that's the example and that that's what they're supposed to do. And so I'm very clear with people like, just because I'm doing it this way, it is not what I want for you. And so we are very clear that we want people to take the time that they need for family matters, whether it be like a new baby or a sick, relative or whatever it is. People should take the time that they need. And I feel very in tune with myself and knowing that I will take the time that I need when that time comes. But the times when I had children happened to be times where I couldn't fully unplug from work, just because of whatever was going on in the world or the business at the time. It wasn't my intent to not take maternity leaves, but it just kind of happened that way. And kind of back to what I was saying about like integration, while my maternity leaves didn't look traditional, like I didn't like turn off my email for 4 months or whatever, they definitely were, for me, a break. Like I wasn't coming into the office every day. I wasn't plugged in at the 5 a.m. hour. I wasn't working at the same pace. I was just kind of like checking in and kind of, making some key decisions here and there. And for me, that really was a break. It's, because it was just a different pace than I was used to working. And I do worry about setting the example, because a benefit of working at Weezie, once you've worked here for 5 years, we give you a 5-week sabbatical fully paid.
Very cool.
And so we've had, I think, 3 employees take that now, and it'll be more obviously in the next, as the business continues to mature, it'll be more. And my co-founder Liz, she took one at our 5-year anniversary, and everyone keeps asking me like, when are you taking yours? When are you taking yours? And I'm like, I will know when it's time to take it. And like, I think that I will kind of prepare accordingly and get the time together to go take that 5 weeks off. And I think it's like the ultimate gift that I can like choose that timing. And so I think I can like be prepared to do it, and the business will be in a good place and the team will be in a good place. But I do worry about the example that I set. So I have said to the team, I'm like, when you hit your 5 years, I'm going to give you 1 year to take it. Like you got to take it in that year so that people like are forced to step away, because otherwise I fear that people are going to be like, well, Lindsey didn't take hers. And
it's so hard. I get it. I mean, again, I'm in the same boat as you, where what I tell my team I want them to do and what I do myself are sometimes very different things. And I think there's just this weight that can rest on your shoulders as a CEO, where you feel like, yeah, but like all of you are depending on me making sure that I've still got everything running the way that it needs to. And so it's like, I feel that. Similarly, paternity leave, obviously very different. I wasn't pushing a baby out of my birth canal, so like, a little different, but I never took a paternity leave, right? Like never had that opportunity, even at companies before I started my own company. It was just one of those things where it's like I was at a startup and that wasn't a thing or whatever it was, right? And so because of that, I've made sure that from very day one, employee one, and I didn't have health insurance at a lot of these other startups that I was at before. And so it's like day one, nope. We've got health insurance, the best health insurance that we can afford. Day one, we've got, maternity coverage, we've got paternity coverage. It's like, I want those things that I didn't have. And I think that there's something beneficial to like you saying, I want better for you. I want better for my team than even what I've maybe granted myself. And I think that's a really good selfless thing.
Yeah, and I have to remember that like I chose this, right? Mm-hmm. Like Liz and I chose this. We chose to start a business, and that comes with amazing and wonderful benefits, and it also comes with like challenges, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like that's the choice we made. And so I think your employees did not choose that, right? they didn't choose the founder life.
You told me that you like to travel. What has been your most enjoyable trip, or let's just say most perspective shifting trip? Either one of those.
It's a great question. I think I mean, my like the place where I'm like really able to unplug is like when I'm on a different time zone. I feel like otherwise I'm like constantly checking in. Mm-hmm. So I feel like for me, like going to Europe is like the best possible place to like unplug, reset, and actually think. Like I think that's the danger I think you get in when you're running a business and not taking time away, like not taking the maternity leaves and not taking the sabbatical, is that you don't actually have time to think. I mean, I look at my calendar and I'm in meetings all day long. Meanwhile, I'm supposed to be like constantly thinking about what's next and kind of plotting and planning and being strategic. And I think the best way to do that, I think, is to step away and like be on a different time zone where I can't be like plugged in on Slack and responding right away to things that are kind of coming through in real time. And I feel like it's usually on a trip with like just my husband. I think like I love traveling with friends. Like I love super social people. Like we just got back from a trip with 10 people, which was so fun. But like I wasn't doing a lot of thinking on that trip. And so I think just like going to a different time zone, like Europe is the place that I love to go and be alone with Stevens because we can both like we also it's like I think we have a very interesting relationship where we talk about work like a fair amount. And I don't know if that's healthy or not for like your marriage, but we're both pretty ambitious people, so it is like a good sounding board to kind of step away from the business, bounce ideas, and like I'll bring like 3 business books with me and like crush them. You know, it's like I'm like still thinking about work, but it's like in a very like it's a much more fun task to do that when you're like in a beautiful place away from all the chaos and kind of like really unplugged.
I love that. My wife and I like to take a trip at least once a year as well. And while we don't go quite to business, my wife's also an entrepreneur. So we do talk about like her job and my job and like, what are we doing? And I would say that we kind of have like almost like a little EOS light that we've been kind of trying to do as well. It's like, what's our mission and vision and values for our
That's
family?
hilarious because we talk about doing that all the time.
Yeah.
Stevens, my husband got served some like Instagram ad from some couple who like goes away every year and they write down what are their goals and what are their goals for their kids and like you know they evaluate their marriage and all these different lens. Stevens is like such a goals oriented person, so he's like we got to do this, we got to do this, and I've been shaking him off, but I think it's probably time we endeavor in that.
I think it's pretty good. All right, a couple of quick ones just for fun. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Black or with something in it?
I drink a La Colombe oat milk latte every single morning.
Okay, nice. What's one thing that you splurge on that you're totally worth it?
Shoes.
Oh, okay. What's one of the most underrated parts of your morning routine?
I mean, it's a hard question. For my morning routine, it's like that coffee. I go straight. If I grab my coffee before my children wake up and like whip out my laptop, I do my best thinking in the morning. So that's why I love the like early morning wake up. I wouldn't say it's underrated because to me, it's like the best part of my morning is having that silent house before the chaos ensues.
Yeah, I'm a big morning routine fan, and so I just always appreciate what other people enjoy about their morning routines. You said you like to read a lot of business books. What's your favorite business book or podcast?
Well, Traction is the first one that comes to mind that we already talked about. Right now I'm reading Radical Candor, which is an interesting book for me to read given I told you my directness.
Love it
already, but
if Weezie had a theme song, what would the song be?
Oh my gosh. The first one that comes to mind is Walking on Sunshine.
Nice. That's a good song. I like that. I like that you had that even ready to go. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Okay. So let's fast forward 10 years. Weezie's thriving. Your kids are older. You have a little more space to breathe. What do you want people to say about the company you built and the way that you built it?
I want Weezie to be known for luxury through and through. I want it to be the number one household name in luxury home goods and beyond. And I think that I want people to say that we built it with heart and we built it like a real brand, not just like a company for, you know, kind of like one of those corporate machines. Like I think there's like real soul behind our brand and what we do. And I just want people to remember that.
That's a beautiful goal. Lindsey, it's been so great getting to know you, learning from you. You've shared so much of your wisdom with us. If people wanted to work with you, follow you, learn from you, what's the best way for them to kind of read more about what you're thinking?
Yeah, my LinkedIn profile, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, which is Lindsey Johnson, which is my maiden name. And my Instagram is at Lindsey_Weezie. But our brand is Weezie Towels everywhere.
I love it. Well, thank you again for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. It's been really, really fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed this. It was great chatting.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.